Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the third episode of Media's live show. Tuesday night get together. I'm actually starting a little early rather than late today because I had a good night's sleep and I had a very short walk today. I was only out and about for about an hour before I was too hungry to keep going and too broke to buy food, so I turned back around and went home. Uh, Happy Juneteenth, everyone! Everyone's favorite holiday. Um, I'm just gonna use this to kind of fill time and let people filter in here as I share this around. Juneteenth is I mean, every holiday is a fake holiday to some extent. Even like the really important ones are like have tons of asterisks, like Christmas. Christmas is supposed to be the celebration of Jesus' birth, but everybody knows that that's not actually when Jesus was born. Every person who's like read the Bible or knows anything about like Roman history or like any kind of history surrounding that time period knows Jesus was more likely born in like September or October. Uh, the church was what established it as December 25th, and they only did so that Christianity could have a holiday close to the winter solstice. That's it. That's all it was, really. Uh, but Juneteenth, that's a holiday celebrating the liberation of the last slave post Civil War. That's a noble thing, though. With most holidays like that, we typically don't celebrate the end as much as we celebrate the beginning of the end. Um, Independence Day is actually a really good example of this. Very few people actually signed the Declaration of Independence on July 4th. They actually started on July 2nd, and it took all the way to like the end of August to get all the signatures. But July 4th was when it hit the majority, so that's when we typically say, like, oh, this is when it was signed, this is when it passed, whatever. Uh, and everybody else just kind of like trickled in throughout the weeks after that. Uh, we don't really celebrate the the signing of the Treaty of Paris in regards to our independence, nor do we celebrate like the Battle of Yorktown or the last battle ending, which was after the Treaty of Paris, because it took a while for British forces to get the news that the Treaty of Paris was signed. So there were still conflicts going on, like South Carolina and Georgia, well after the signing of the Treaty of Paris. But we don't really talk about any of that because it doesn't really matter as much as the signing of the Declaration of Independence and getting the majority on that, which was July 4th. So that's America's birthday for all intents and purposes. Uh, Juneteenth is in a very similar boat because it's basically like when we no longer had to militarily enforce the beginning of the 13th and 15th Amendment. Uh, the signing of the 13th and 15th Amendment are much more important and much more worthy of celebration than Juneteenth. Sorry, my nose is a little congested today. I'm going to go try to fix that right now. All right. So I got a couple people in here now. Uh, I just blew my nose so hard that I'm starting to see all those little sparkles on the screen. Speaking of kind of bullshit celebration stuff, and current events, we have the LA riots going on again. This seems to happen like every 10 years or so, where the people of LA just decide to burn things down for under false pretenses, and this time it's under the pretense of ICE raid starting. The problem with that is that the ICE raids actually started all the way back in January, and the most recent batch was actually just targeting cartel members. which is very weird. Very weird that people would be upset about that. Like you would think that would be the one and only group of people that even pro immigration people are like, no, get them out of our country. But I also find it very weird that they're waving around Mexican flags. I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one to have pointed this out on Twitter. But like, you're celebrating the country that you refuse to live in. If you like Mexico so much, why don't you go back? Anyway, that's all the politics for today. Um, Two big things I want to talk about this week. But and one of them we're gonna actually get jump right into. We're gonna jump right into my big review for this week, which is I caught up to Zom 100, the manga. I spoke on this a little bit last week. I had just finished the anime at that point. It took me about 2-3 days to finish the anime, and then it took me another week to catch up with the manga. This is a rare case where the anime is the superior version. Of course, the manga spans a lot more time. There's a lot more character arcs, yada yada. There's a lot more characters. The cast has grown. The party is now, I think, six main protagonists as opposed to where the anime ended off. It was just the four, and they even barely got the fourth one in before the finale. But obviously anime has a lot more tools at its disposal than manga does. You got the use of color, which Psalm 100 is very clever with. Got the actual like animation, voice acting, sound design, soundtrack. The soundtrack to Psalm 100 slaps. The opening by Kanabun, it might actually be my favorite Kanabun song now. Uh, and for those of you who don't know, Kanabun previously had done my favorite Naruto opening, Silhouette, which is like top five favorite Japanese songs for me. It's like that. Gamashura by Chico with Honeyworks. Um, I would probably throw in The Peak by from One Piece. Uh, Song of the Dead would actually be up there. It's one of my favorite openings once it actually is completed and is in the actual show. Zom 100 had production issues. I think it came out right at the same time that COVID stuff was at its peak, which is very very fitting for uh being a zombie show. Uh and so there are like a lot of delays. Like it took I think like 6 months for all 12 episodes to air. The opening wasn't done until like halfway through the season or even more. Uh, so there's a lot of that, but a lot of that stuff can kill the hype. But that is only a detraction if hype is all you have going for you, which Zom 100 is not. Zom 100 is my favorite zombie story ever. And it's not even particularly close. For those of you who don't know, I am not a fan of zombies. I think they are the lamest of the classic monsters. I can never get around the fact that, like, muscles are what make things move, and so if the muscles deteriorate, they can move less. Like, I can never, like, suspend my disbelief enough to believe that zombies would ever actually be a threat, especially in a post 1990s world where everyone has a strategy to survive a zombie apocalypse. Everyone. That's what I liked about Zombieland back in 2009 with Jesse Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson, where it was like, oh, a zombie apocalypse has started. Let's make a rule book about like what to do and what not to do during the zombie apocalypse and build a movie around that. Zom 100 has that same kind of irreverent tone and that same kind of like vibe that Zombieland does, especially like being an action comedy and stuff. But I think it has a lot more heart. It's not as like cynical for cynicism's sake. I think the characters are a lot better. I didn't super care for the cast of Zombieland, whereas everyone in Zom 100 is a delight. Uh, but yeah, going back to the anime versus the manga comparisons, the anime just does utilize the strengths of the medium a lot more than the manga does. The manga, like, it looks great. It is a monthly manga, so the expected quality is a lot higher than it would be for, say, Black Clover. I don't know why I picked Black Clover. I don't even read Black Clover, but that's like that's the weekly manga series that a lot of people believe looks good and whose art is like the thing people like about it. I have seen panels and stuff from Black Clover. It does look pretty sick, but I've never actually watched or read it. But everyone says that it's of all the like new gen manga, it's the one that is closest to Bleach, and I believe it. Just based on what I've seen, I believe that Black Clover is of a similar quality to Bleach, which Bleach is a manga that I have mixed feelings for, but right now I'm very much on the side of loving it. Uh, but the upside to Zaman 100's manga is again it's just it covers more of the story. It's ongoing, and while the art is great, uh, it is allowed to be more violent, like show a lot more of the like blood and guts of the zombies, whereas the anime has a pretty clever use of censorship by making everything look like it's neon paint. Uh, the manga is also allowed to show nudity, but I think that actually works against it because of how weirdly selective it is. Like, there's a lot of characters who just are topless or whatever for extended periods of time, but it never does that to the two main characters. And I understand not wanting to sexualize them, but at the same time, they're all adults. Like, there's nothing bad if they do that. It's just weird censorship that doesn't. It's not consistent. Like, there are panels where they're like there's a bit where they're on a cruise ship that's like just one big orgy party, and Kinsho, the blonde guy, he's loving it. Beatrix is kind of like just trying to keep to herself. Akira is super awkward and bashful about the whole situation, and Shizuka, the main girl, is like not having fun at all with it. Uh, Sup, Sock? Long time no talk. I'm talking Zom 100, my new favorite zombie thing ever. I'm not even being ironic. Like, it's not even close. Like, it's Zom 100, and then, like, I don't know. Like, Zombieland and Warm Bodies would be, like, the 2 and 3. And then, of course, I got a lot of respect for Night of the Living Dead, for being kind of the first zombie movie of its type. But classically, not a fan of zombies. But Zom 100 is my jam. Uh, but anyway, this whole scene is like this girl like strips down naked and is like making the moves on Akira, and he's like kind of freaking out about it. And I'm like, okay, this you know, like this is kind of realistic, live and let live. It actually it uses fan service to try to like lean into the logical conclusions of its primary theme, which is seize the day. The bucket list. It's the subtitle is bucket list of the dead, while also like nurturing and pushing this main relationship between Akira and Shizuka forward in a way again that makes sense. Like, it makes sense that she would get upset, but it also doesn't make sense to her because she doesn't realize how much she actually likes him, and it's all jealousy and stuff. Uh, Coop said you ain't even putting Shaun of the Dead up there, really. Shaun of the Dead is up there, okay? It's just I think it's because I watched Shaun of the Dead so long after it had come out that it didn't come off as fresh to me. Like, I saw Zombieland first. Like, so by the time I saw Shaun of the Dead, I had already seen a lot of those same jokes elsewhere. Even though Shaun of the Dead did those jokes first. Uh, yeah, I miss you too, Sock. Uh, but anyway, I love Akira Shizuka. They are two of my favorite characters ever. Akira is just a vibe. He's very energetic. He spent like 3 years for working for this exploitative company, and then the zombie apocalypse freed him. So he's reveling in this newfound freedom that the zombie apocalypse affords him. And Shizuka is very like survival based, and I love that they build the relationship off that, where like Akira is teaching Shizuka how to live, Shizuka is teaching Akira how to survive. The two do have a lot of overlap, but not always, and it's a very strong foundation for their relationship. And spoiler alert for the manga, they do hook up. They are hooked up now. They're actually separated currently. Um, they did their skydiving thing, trying to skydive into the city in order to like help out this military base that's under siege. And they ended up getting separated. The boys are off on their own, and the girls are separated off on their own. We haven't caught up with the boys and how they're handling being separated, but we did most recently see Shizuka, Beatrix, and I think her name is like Izuru. She's fairly new to the squad, but she's a gamer girl. Uh, and they just met another character who's been like surviving in this zombie infested city for weeks on her own. Uh, anyway, Shizuka is also just I really like her design. Uh, Athletic girls with midriffs, like, and it's also just really neat that they're all adults. Like, I hate that that's got to be a qualifying statement. And I'm not like super prudish. I'm not super like against shows featuring teenagers. Most of my favorite anime do feature teenagers heavily, but it does get a little tiresome. Like, I wish more. I wish more shows. I specifically wish more shows that had a romance angle featured or starred more adults. But yeah, Zom 100 kicks ass. It's great. Uh, I'm not like holding my breath for a season two because I know like the first season like damn near bankrupted the company and stuff, and I kind of want to wait for like if I were calling the shots, I would kind of wait for the manga to end before making more anime, and then just try to like take my time with it, give it the love that it deserves. Um, but I highly recommend it. I do highly recommend the manga, but I do recommend watching the anime first. And this was going to be my other big point, like why the anime is superior. Shizuka's introduction in the anime is heads and shoulders above her introduction in the manga. Like it is on that like under the red hood level of quality. What I mean by that is in the Batman comics, when Red Hood was brought back, he was brought back in a very stupid way. He was brought back because at the time, Infinite Crisis was the big thing that had just happened, and there's this mandate at DC where anything that changed the status quo or changes the status quo had to link back to Superboy Prime punching reality. And that was so stupid, especially in Red Hood's case, because Batman already has the Lazarus pits built into his mythos. Just use the Lazarus pits. And so the Under the Red Hood movie did use the Lazarus Pits, and then that basically became the new canon. Every retcon the DC has done since then has explained that Jason Todd died, and then he got brought back with the Lazarus Pit, because that's just a much neater, tidier, and just better explanation for it than whatever Infinite Crisis was. Shizuka's introduction in the manga, she is word for word what it is in the anime, but she just kind of like throws the shelf at the zombies and just struts out, and then she steals Akira's bike. Uh, in the anime, she has her own bike, which is a plus. Shows that like it helps highlight her survival mentality and being prepared and stuff. She's got like her GoPro stuff streaming to her phone, so she can like monitor the outside, and she sees the truck coming, and then Akira like jumps in between her and the zombies to try to protect her, and she just grabs him, slams him down to the ground. Truck busts in, smashing all the zombies, clearing a way for her to escape while also crushing Akira's bike, and like, and they have this look. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. I'm actually gonna just show the scene. I was also watching an English dub. Don't judge me. Shizuka's voice actress is the same girl who plays Momo in Don to Don. So that's a plus as well. Great voice actors, underrated. But I'm gonna just skip to this part. I'm just gonna play a couple seconds of this. So much cooler than just her strutting away and then stealing his bike. Uh, that's kind of most of my thoughts on Zom 100. I could probably talk about it more if I like scripted out my thoughts and tried to like compile them into something more cohesive. Don to Don, love that anime. I did too. I mentioned it in my top 20 favorite anime romances because I had Momo and Okarun on there. If I redid that list, Akira Shizuka would be top 10. Not, although I would have to put the asterisk, like, their relationship doesn't develop a whole lot in the anime. Like, you get that introductory scene, you get the scene where they reunite, and it's the scene where she actually finally relents and gives him her contact info, and he's like, "Oh, well, you see, I would treat everybody. See, even if I wasn't just trying to show off and be a hero to you, I would still want to protect you because I consider you someone precious to me too." And she gets all flustered and just goes red in the face. Like you got that scene, then you got the bath scene where she admits that like she never cared about romance, and she's always just been really bad about conveying her true feelings to people because her dad was like a tyrant who never valued her opinion, so she always found it hard to value the opinions of others. uh and that she hopes that if she does fall in love, that's with someone she can be open with, like she is with Akira. And that's like the first real indication that okay, this is actually a thing that is going to happen. Um, but seeing the relationship develop in the manga and seeing like Shizuka gives up the best chance she has at like following her dream because she is just so fond of Akira and doesn't want to abandon him until the list is done. And the way she like tests him in that little mini arc, where she's like, "What would you do if I did leave?" And he just like is happy for her and wants her to go and pursue this dream. And then he doesn't even like say goodbye. He just kind of like leaves because he knows that he can't be happy about it, but he needs to because that's the kind of person he is, and that's the kind of like that's what love means to him. Uh, and it was like, and it reminds Shizuka like, oh, that's the kind of person he is, and that's why I fell in love with him. And then they confess and they kiss, and it's great. Uh, I love all that. It would arguably make my top 10 anime romances if I redid that video now. It would certainly be higher than Momo and Okarun, which I think was like in the 15th spot or something. Um, because it's hands down better than that. I am also excited for Don to Don season 2. I will be talking about it on the live show as it comes out. I've been listening to that new OP song. Uh, it's not as unique as Creepy Nuts Otonoke, but it is much more like up my alley music taste wise. Like I could actually see me listening to it when I'm not in a Don to Don mood. I am gonna miss that first OP though. I'm gonna miss the guy from Creepy Nuts going dun da da dun da da dun da da dun da da dun da dun dun da da dun da da dun da da dun da da dun da dun. And then rapping in Japanese, which is not my cup of tea. But it's a lot of people's cup of tea, just not mine. There are other things that have been coming out that I've been into though. Namely that I completely forgot the point I was making about Don to Don. I think Don to Don had ended in the worst possible place. It would have been so much better if um if they just waited. They waited a couple months and play and had the first season and the second season play as a two core season. Uh, sucks that I still rock to the Mashiel theme every now and then. Uh, I don't actually like that song. I just find it kind of annoying. Uh, Again, it's just not my cup of tea. I know a lot of people love that song, so that's like a steaming hot take. But I don't know. It's just it never did anything for me, and neither did the episode of Mashiel that I watched. There's a reason why everybody only ever talks about the OP and not the show itself. Um. So other big show that I started watching again, My Hero Academia Vigilantes. It's more of what I love about My Hero Academia. I watched the first 3 episodes after the first 3 episodes had come out, and I loved it. But I realized that like this is not something I want to watch week to week, so I'm gonna wait and then binge it. And I did. It's not over yet, but I got like in a funk. Like I was like, man, I really just want to watch uh My Hero Academia Vigilantes some more, and so I caught up with it. Or actually, I'm not even caught up with it. I'm one episode away from catching up with it. Um, My Hero Academia Vigilantes. It takes place in the My Hero universe. It takes place, I think it's like 5 years before Deku meets All Might. And so you got like All Might is fresh off of his battle with All for One. Maybe not even like maybe he hasn't even had his battle with All for One, because we do hear All for One talking to the B girl. Uh, I love Koichi. I love Knuckle Duster. I like Pop Step a lot. I wouldn't say I love her. Um, I'm just gonna address my one major complaint with My Hero Academia Vigilantes. Much like Zom 100, I love that it's a primarily adult cast. Again, I don't have anything against teenagers, except I do. Uh, I certainly don't have anything against people who want to write teenagers. As you'll see when I talk about the other things I've been watching this week. Uh, it's just that My Hero Academia had like 50 teenagers as its primary characters, and so I just wanted a more adult perspective on that world, a college blues type thing, which is what Koichi is all about. That kind of gets cast aside because Pop Step's like 15 or something. Um, Again, like I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I really don't have a problem with Pop Step having a crush on Koichi. The reason she has a crush on him makes perfect sense. He is like an older guy and she's a young girl, and at least I'm not reading any romantic intentions on his end. Uh, he seems to view her in a very platonic light, while she's the one with this one-sided crush, which I love. I love because that's a very I, I hesitate to say realistic, but I can see that being relatable, and it's rare for it to be a girl who has this one-sided crush on a guy. Usually it's like the guy is stupid or just oblivious or just isn't interested in romance. But Koichi's not any of those. He's not like oblivious to Pop Step's feelings, and he's not against the idea of romance. He just doesn't see her that way. And I'm having a hard time thinking of another heavily like focused on relationship that's quite like that. Uh but I am liking this plot. I'm liking it's much more street level. Um Latter date My Hero Academia did have a bit of a power creep problem where everything is just like citywide explosions, and you got All for One and Shigaraki with all their multiple quirks, and Dabi is like a walking nuclear bomb, and Todoroki is the only one who could like nullify him, and him and Ida are going like Mach 10 speed to try to stop him, and Bakugo is spoilers for the manga, I guess. It's gonna be literally the next episode whenever season 8 starts. Bakugo wakes up and just fucking dusts All for One. He's like, "You have all these quirks, but I only ever needed one." uh, like these are guys with like relatively lame powers. Like Koichi is able to like move like not even like super fast, just kind of like slightly above normal speed, but he has to have 3 points of contact. But he can also like go up walls and stuff. Knuckle Duster is quirkless. I haven't read the manga, so don't answer this question. But I theorize that he had a quirk that got stolen by All for One, and that the B girl was somehow involved. I've been theorizing that ever since he fought Aizawa in that one episode. Because he very clearly knows pro heroes, and he's been in the game for a while, and he seems to like know these people's reputation. Like he knows Captain Celebrity's reputation and all the lawsuits he's been facing, which like that's not something an out of touch old quirkless vigilante would even necessarily care about, less uh like no. And then Pop Step's quirk is just jumping good. I love it. I love that it's like a fairly adequate explanation for like why they have to resort to vigilantism rather than go and get their hero license. Uh, and I like seeing Ida's older brother able to walk. Uh, I did see the episode with Stain's origins. Uh, that was pretty cool. It's just been a really cool show. Like I'm surprised that as many people are sleeping on it as they are, because like I think it does a great job at recapturing that classic comic book magic of My Hero Academia while also furthering its themes and exploring what a superhero society would actually be like, which was always one of My Hero Academia's greatest appeals. But now to quickly run through other things I've been watching. Uh, One Piece continues to be peak. Luffy, or in the anime, we're like balls deep in Kuma's backstory. We just got to the part where Ginny died and Bonnie was born. Which means that next episode will likely show him making the deal with Vegapunk, which means that the episode after that will probably be when I really talk about why the world government sucks and why Egghead is one of my favorite arcs in One Piece. Uh yeah, I'm gonna really talk about it when it shows Kizaru dancing, because that's the moment that kind of like broke my heart even more than like Jenny dying, because like Jenny dying, that's typical One Piece backstory behavior. Like as soon as she was introduced to so it's like, oh well, countdown to tragedy. Whereas Kizaru dancing the Nika dance and then looking back on what happened right before we went into this backstory is one of the worst crimes that the world government has perpetuated, and it's something that they've been doing constantly since their inception, and that's the tragedy. You know, this taking this what could be a strong family unit, or this strong, like, they should be. I'm getting ahead of myself. That I gotta say that for like 2 to 3 weeks from now. The manga's been popping off. Emu is on a warpath on Elbath. Uh, and Luffy now knows what's going on, which means Luffy about to go kick some ass. It's been a while since Luffy's actually shown up in a chapter in any meaningful way. Uh, Fandom's been like, man, I really miss Luffy. We really need Luffy right now. And it's really shown like Straw Hats really need to get stronger, because they the past two arcs they've been hard carried by Luffy. Like on Wano, everyone kind of contributed to some extent, but like that their performance on Wano is not cutting it anymore. Like you had Jinbei, the third or fourth strongest member on the crew, get no diffed by one of the Holy Knights. Granted, probably the strongest of the Holy Knights. I have my theories about Gunko and her connection to Emu. Uh, we do know from a throwaway line that Ivankov had back on Egghead that Emu was part of the Nerona clan, which was one of the 20 founding families. I believe Gunko may be a descendant of the Nerona clan. And I believe actually a lot of the Holy Knights may have been slaves. May have been like people who were captured to be slaves, but were too strong to remain in chains, and so they were offered a position within the Holy Knights instead. And that's a theory that's been boiling in the back of my mind for a while now, because I'm like, ever since Egghead, really, with York, like why would they make York a celestial dragon? Like they're not going to honor that deal, right? Like there's no way you can't just become a celestial dragon like that. What if you could by becoming a holy knight? And what if that's the path that York's on right now? And then there's theories about like killing him being a fishman because of the bowl he's been wearing over his head, and it looks like he has gills in his hybrid form. Uh, and then you also have the stuff with Loki. Like they offered Loki a position as one of the holy knights, and like again they're doing the same thing. Like what would happen if he agreed? I think a lot of the holy knights that don't have their family name, like Saint Shepherd Somers, he's a descendant from one of the 20 original families. Same thing with Figurlin Garling and Figurlin Shamrock. They're the Figurlins and the Shepherds are two of the founding families. But like people like Gillingham and Gunko and York and potential ones like Loki, they're not part of the 20 founding families, but they could still be holy knights. And it's making me wonder. It's getting the gears turning. Like, what happened in the Void Century? What was this ancient kingdom like? How did the world government beat them? And there's like the assimilation thing, and I'm thinking about like actually reminds me of Elden Ring. How Elden Ring did that with Marika assimilating her enemies into her forces in order to bolster her ranks against stronger opponents. I think the world government is trying to do that. I think they were against doing that for a long time until the Revolutionary Army came about, and that's when they made Jinbei a warlord. And so they're trying to like bolster up their forces by making amends with these other people. And King Harold was part of that whole thing, and everyone's been theorizing that Harold was turned into a monster, and Loki had to kill him in order to save Elbath, and he just like took the fall for it, and that Jarl uh, and or Mosa. I think that Jarl and Mosa are the same person, but that's subject to be disproven. I do believe that like they are the same person, that they were kind of in on it and let Loki take the fall for that in order to like help keep peace on Elbath uh, and prepare for this attack. Uh, Coop said, "I only just finished watching Dressrosa again for the third time." Why would you read Dressrosa or watch Dressrosa 3 times? I've never actually watched the Dressrosa anime all the way through. I can't do it. Like that and Punk, Fishman Island, Punk Hazard, and Dressrosa are just. I think that's the worst stretch of One Piece, especially in the anime. Uh, Sock said it's tragic, but I want them to get their moments. Yes. Hero Darky Dark, welcome. So Kizaru's gonna need therapy after this. Yeah, yeah, he is. And the Cyber King said, "Why does the story present hockey as the skill floor for the new world, and then most of the Straw Hats aren't able to use basic hockey, let alone any advanced forms?" I can get around them not ever learning advanced forms, but they really do need to learn hockey. Like Usopp has observation hockey; he needs to use it more. I think Nami could also have like observation hockey. Uh, Chopper definitely needs observation and probably armament. Frankie and Robin definitely need armament. Brooke, because of the funky way that his fruit works, might not need armament hockey in order to do damage to like Logia users and other hockey users. His Devil Fruit has always been kind of an anomaly within the series in the way that like he's able to tap into the ices of hell. So Brooke might not need hockey in the conventional sense, or depending on how you interpret spirit and the will of a person, he might already be using hockey just unconsciously. Like that could be why he's able to like see and taste and hear despite not having eyes, nose, mouth, or lips, or any other organs. Could all, like, Brooke could be a being of pure hockey and just not even realize it. Uh, I always rewatch the whole thing from the beginning when I get back into it because my memory is really bad. So I have to remind myself of everything that happened. For this reason, I consider One Piece to be too damn long. That sounds like a you problem. But I have an excellent memory. Like, I remember pretty much everything that I've read. Or anything that I've cared to remember. Can't say I remember everything that I've read. So yeah, that's it for One Piece for now. Two other anime that I've been watching, Can a Boy Girl Friendship Survive? Probably just had its best episode. Himari has made the move to kiss the boy whose name is you. And by the way, I hate that is like, I hate that that's trope. I hate that a lot of these shows just keep naming the main male character you. I know it's like a fairly common name in Japan, but in English it just comes off as cringe. But yeah, Can a Boy Girl Friendship Survive probably just had its best episode, and the other show I've been watching this season, Witch Watch, probably just had its worst. I've said this before, but like lampshading does nothing for me. You can't just say like, "Oh wow, this is so tropey," and then just not do anything interesting with the tropes. They're just tropes. Like the whole joke is that the student counselor are a bunch of old anime tropes, but that they don't do anything interesting with them. They just exist, and I'm supposed to forgive it because everyone acknowledges that they're tropes. It's not funny. It does seem to be like building up the last stretch of the episode with Nemu coming back in. Things seem to be getting like interesting again. There's a warlock after Nico. That'll be fun. Maybe Nemu will actually join the main cast instead of just being a gag character who doesn't interact with anybody. I started like really not like Witch Watch as much as I thought I would, because we kind of had like two dud episodes in a row now. And we had I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 episodes ago. We had the episode with the one girl trying to like impress her rich family by serving them tea or whatever. I didn't like that episode either. So yeah, Witch Watch is kind of like it's losing me. But now, with that all wrapped up, we can actually get on to the main article. Anime was always popular. Or, more accurately, anime has always been as popular as it's been available. I've seen a lot of commotion about like, oh, anime's going mainstream and that's ruining it. But I'm also old enough to have heard that same exact conversation with the same exact talking points happen every few years since like 2005. It's been mainstream. It just got mainstream, or it just recently hit mainstream, and has been recently hitting mainstream for 20 years at least. This is like the whole like kids don't have perspective thing, because they don't. Teenagers especially don't have perspective. I just have some bits of trivia here, kind of, or actually, I'm gonna start with an anecdote. My dad, who is almost exactly 20 years older than me, he was born in 1973. I was born in 1993. My dad used to watch reruns of Speed Racer when he was a kid, and he used to love that show. And it was, the way he describes it, fairly popular. Now, back then they didn't call it anime; they called it Japanimation, which I think is actually a better term. to describe it, because anime is literally just the Japanese word for animation. Like, it's an import word. They don't actually have their own word for animation. They just co-opted the English word and pronounce it in a Japanese way. Uh, but I think Japanimation, like, it does a better job of showing, like, the oddity, the cultural disconnect between Japanese animation and the Western audience. Because that's really what it is. And when I talk about, like, how popular it was, or its popularity or mainstreamness, I'm talking entirely from my point of view as a 31, soon to be 32-year-old white male American from the Midwest. Uh, but, like, none of this stuff is new. In fact, some trivia. Shonen Saratobi Sasuke and the White Snake Enchantress becomes the first Japanese animated movie to have a U.S. release in 1961. 1961. 11 years before my mom was born, 12 years before my dad was born, and 32 years before I was born. That's a whole 2 my lifetimes ago. Was the first time that a Japanese movie was dubbed and released in Japan. Or Japanese animated movie was dubbed and released in America. And you might actually recognize that name, Saratobi Sasuke. Within Naruto lore, Sasuke Uchiha was named after the father of the third Hokage, Sasuke Saratobi. Yes, Naruto directly references the first ever anime movie to get an English dub. Then, of course, you have Astro Boy, the very first anime. It began broadcasting in America as early as September of 1963. And it was fairly successful. I also want to just point out, Speed Racer got dubbed and started broadcasting in America in 1967, which means that it was already being broadcast pretty consistently for 10 years before my dad would have watched it. Then you have Toonami, premiered in March of 1997. Though the only anime it broadcast originally, I don't know what Cartoon Roulette is. But it had Thundercats, which was an American show. Real Adventures of Johnny Quest, which was a classic Hanna-Barbera show. Cartoon Roulette, I don't know anything about that. And then it had Voltron. Voltron was an anime, mecha anime. I'm actually going to look up Cartoon Roulette. Looks like a Hanna-Barbera thing. Yeah, Cartoon Roulette was a Hanna-Barbera thing. So the only anime that was on Toonami when it first premiered was Voltron. But within about a year and a half, Toonami started airing Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z was extremely popular at the time, as was Pokemon, which is still one of the most celebrated and successful media franchises in the world. You also had Detective Conan being localized as Case Closed as early as, I think, like 1996. You had Akira come out and get dubbed in like the 80s. Same thing with Ghost in the Shell. You had some efforts to dub shows like Yu Yu Hakusho and Trigun by the end of the 90s. Toonami was really like... Toonami and Adult Swim together is kind of like what made anime more widely available stateside, because before you had to kind of like get lucky, and there was always a lot of trouble with dubbing and broadcasting Japanese animation. You had the rights issues. You had to like get the rights. You had to get it translated. You had to try to like get it recorded on the cheap. There was always high demand for anime programming on television and a low supply, which is why they would just take theatrical cartoons and just broadcast them, and why they would try to like syndicate shows like Astro Boy and Speed Racer, uh, just to fill those time slots. And those time slots got more and more numerous as cable television took over, and then you had like the 24/7 broadcast schedule of these cable channels, and more channels means more and more demand for content to fill those time slots. And anime was just a not a quick, easy way, but it was a way to help fill those time slots, and that's what Cartoon Network did. That's one of the reasons why Toonami was made in the first place, was like, here's like kind of our some action oriented shows that we have access to that are safe for kids. Let's create a programming block for that and premiere it. Uh, but of course, a lot of anime is geared towards an older audience than a lot of American cartoons. A lot more violence, a lot more like suggestive themes. Character deaths are a lot more common, a lot more cursing, and so a lot of them had to either get censored or wait until after 2001 so that they could be played on Adult Swim. Adult Swim helped push things even further. Adult Swim was where we first got Inuyasha, Full Metal Alchemist, Bleach, Death Note, Code Geass. Eureka 7, I remember, was on Adult Swim back in 2005. You had all these shows, and all this stuff was very popular well before Crunchyroll was ever a thing. Crunchyroll just made it to where you no longer had, well, not even Crunchyroll, just streaming sites in general made it to where you don't have to like find the channel and wait for it to come on, or hope that you DVR it or go to a Blockbuster to find VHS tapes. Because remember, Blockbuster, that was a thing. That was actually how I watched the Boo Saga, because the Boo Saga, for whatever reason, just Toonami never got around to it for a long time. So I watched most of the Boo Saga by renting VHS tapes from Blockbuster back in like 2003. And now like there's so many studios making anime. And this is just kind of true of all mediums, where like the bigger something gets, it just kind of snowballs, and more people do it, more and more people like utilize the same tropes and stuff until it reaches a point of diminishing returns, which is uh sucks that you mentioned the B word. I'm turning into dust. Yeah. Uh Man, I watched one of the, God, what was I watching? It was one of the Jurassic Park movies. It was Jurassic Park Lost World. I was watching that a few weeks ago, and there's that scene where the T Rex stomps through the Blockbuster. I'm like, man, this movie came out in 1997. Oh, and I was like, man, everything else about this movie holds up. Like you could play this in theaters and fool people into thinking it's a new movie because the effects look that good. But then they get to the Blockbuster scene and it's like, nope, this could have only existed in the 90s. Uh, but yeah, I'm not sorry, I have to try to collect my thoughts on what I was gonna say next. Um, yeah, streaming basically meant that you can watch it anytime, anywhere. It just made it more available. COVID brought a lot of people into anime and into genres that they weren't otherwise accustomed with. Because a lot of the popular anime are either shonen battle stuff or like rom coms, or just like comedies in general. I'm not actually sure why on that last part. Like the shonen battle stuff, I totally see, because this was the core appeal to Dragon Ball for me as a kid. Where like structurally and like character wise, it wasn't that different from like Justice League or Batman Beyond or Avengers, those superhero shows, but like people died, and it occasionally showed blood, and it felt taboo, even though it really wasn't. Uh, like it felt more like violent and mature than it actually was. And that was a big core part of Dragon Ball's appeal. Like it made kids feel like they were adults, which that's what kids want. They want to grow up. They want to be treated with respect. They don't want to be talked down to. Is what a lot of kid shows end up doing. Uh, so yeah, that was always a big part of that appeal. That was always like a big part of the shonen genre's appeal is that it's so distinctly Japanese, but still appeals to the sensibilities of Westerners. Uh, like mecha and kaiju stuff, that also is very Japanese, and kaiju films did start in America. Like that is something that Japan kind of stole from us. But it still like doesn't really seem to have the same kind of appeal over here that it does in Japan. Whereas a lot of the big shonen battle stuff, like Naruto in particular, is bigger here in America, or at least it was for a long time, bigger here in America than it was back home in Japan. And so there's always that as well. I'm actually getting tired. But yeah, any other questions? And while I think of what else to talk about, because that was kind of it for my docket. I just wanted to kind of rant a little bit about how like the increasing popularity of anime isn't due to like fans or anything anime is doing other than just becoming more widely available. Because back in the 70s you had to like stay up late and hope to catch an episode of like Cyborg 009. I'm fucking dating myself there. Uh, I think I just carbon dated myself by accident. Uh, or Speed Racer or Classic Gundam. And then you had like whole programming blocks where you could like reliably watch new anime or newish anime every day or every weekend at such and such times. Now it's like literally just type in crunchyroll.com and you can get a whole list of like all the new anime that are coming out. Uh, the wider availability is the primary reason why anime seems to be getting more popular. But for people who actually watch anime or were exposed to it, they instinctually know that like it was kind of always the case. Like when the times have not actually changed all that much. I think that's gonna actually do it. This is a kind of a short show, but I really wanted to get that out of the way. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do next week. I might actually do, depending on how far the new One Piece episode gets, I might actually just do a big Egghead review. I'm not actually sure yet. There's a lot of things I want to talk about every week, and that is one of them. Uh, but thank you all for joining me. Thank you again, Sock. Good talking to you. Uh, ooh, maybe depending on the timing, I could actually get you on the show. We could talk something, whatever you want. Uh, oh yeah, I totally understand like the acceptance of more like nerdiness about it. Um, I can certainly relate to that. But again, like I don't actually think it's that much more culturally acceptable. Uh, like it's like back in the day, you watched Dragon Ball and you kind of talked about like, oh, that fight was really cool, but you talked about it kind of in the same way you used to talk about wrestling or like sports, or comic books, superhero comic books that were in the same vein as well. Uh, And I think a lot of that actually has to do with online spaces encouraging that. I frequently say like Twitter is not a real place, but Twitter does create the illusion that like these conversations are happening a lot more frequently than they actually are. Like I very often see people wearing anime T-shirts and stuff in the wild. I've always seen people wearing anime T-shirts in the wild. I've always seen Dragon Ball and Pokemon merch out in the wild. But like even when you do, you don't stop what you're doing and be like, oh, such and such is waifu, and I can't wait for the new season, the Demon Slayer movies. They're taking the worst arc in Demon Slayer and dividing it into three films that you have to pay $10 each to see. Uh, those conversations happen almost entirely online, which kind of creates this kind of like false impression of also creates false impressions of shows' popularity. Like Solo Leveling. Like Solo Leveling just won Anime of the Year for bullshit reasons. I've never actually seen a Solo Leveling fan out in the wild. I've never seen anybody wearing like Solo Leveling merch out on my daily walks or anything. I've seen Demon Slayer. I've seen Jujutsu Kaisen. I've seen Has Been Hotel. I've seen Frieren. I've seen obviously all the big ones: Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, Dragon Ball, Hunter x Hunter, Sword Art Online, My Hero Academia, Full Metal Alchemist. I've even seen some Detective Conan stuff out in the wild. Uh, yeah, Pokemon is something I constantly see. My niece is actually, my oldest niece is actually way into Pokemon. Uh, but I've never seen Solo Leveling. But like, if you just go based on line, especially like as the anime was coming out, or as the fallout of the anime awards happened, you would think that like Solo Leveling is a lot bigger than it is, or is a lot more pervasive than it is. It's really not though. Uh, yeah, there's a lot of anime stuff that I've seen out in the wild. I think I've even seen like Fairy Tail and like Death Note stuff out in the wild. But never seen Quince. Never seen Quince out in the wild, sadly. Uh, yeah, that's gonna do it for me today. Next week I'll be doing something else entirely. Actually, I think I want to do something comic book related. I don't know what though. Maybe I'll finally like crack open my copy of Daredevil Born Again and read through it and do a video on that. But thank you all for watching again, and I hope you have a wonderful day.